So much that I get to do for a living. I talk to people who are legends just in their own mind. Now I get to talk to somebody who's an actual legend, which I could not be more thrilled. His book, new book, I Just Remembered, is available right now. Everyone should go get it. It's a fascinating read. You're a fascinating man. Good to see you, Mr. Reiner. Carl Reiner, how are you?
Carl.
Good to see you, Carl. Why write this book, Carl?
Why not? You know, I looked at every subject in the world. Everything has been written. The only thing that was not written is the history of my life. And I figured, who better? I know me. I know me better than anybody.
Right. Which, I guess, of your multiple projects, television, movies, are you most proud of?
My involvement with creating and producing and writing the Dick Van Dyke Show. I told Dick that this morning. He called. I say that to him all the time, every time I speak to him.
How did you get fixed up with Steve Martin for all those movies, starting with The Jerk?
Well, Steve Martin, somebody called me. Steve Martin was doing this movie called The Jerk. He was going to do it. He had done big venues. 46,000 people used to come to see this wild and crazy guy.
You also directed John Candy, Summer Rental.
Oh, yes.
And he was at the height of being John Candy.
I know.
What was it like to work with him?
Well, he was just one of the sweetest human beings ever. Everybody loved John Candy.
So popular. I mean,
beloved.
Beloved for sure. I don't know if you know this story. During Super Bowl in the late 80s, Joe Montana is down by a handful of points to the Cincinnati Bengals, and he comes out to the huddle with just a couple of minutes to go, and they need to drive the field to win the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And before he calls the first play, he notices that John Candy is sitting in the stands, and they're huddled up all together, and he goes, "Hey, that's John Candy," and just drove him down the field. That Montana said right in the middle of the Super Bowl.
I wish John were here to hear that. So he probably heard this story.
I have been told you were at Super Bowl I.
Yes, I was there
Angeles.
sitting in the stands, in the grandstands at the Coliseum. Bart Starr against Len Dawson. Don't remember much about it, but I remember the excitement of being at the first Super Bowl, not knowing that there's going to be a lot of Super Bowls after
it's coming up on 50 next year.
Yeah,
Super Bowl 50
I know.
is next year. I think I know the answer to this question, but I'll ask it anyway. The funniest person you've ever met?
The funniest person I ever met is Mel Brooks.
Mel Brooks.
The funniest performer I ever knew was Sid Caesar. No question about it. But Mel Brooks is the single funniest person I ever met. You wake him up in the middle of the night, ask him a question, you'll get a funny answer. We did, I think, 6 albums. And it was Steve Allen, and he was the sweetest human being ever. He loved to push comedy forward. I have a studio, World Pacific Jazz. I do my jazz albums. Take it over for a night. We took the studio, invited 200 people, and for 2 hours we wailed. We cut it down to 47 minutes. And the 2,000-Year-Old Man record came out. We still weren't sure who it was for.
When you did the Oceans movies,
Yes.
with obviously most recently, it seemed like you were having an absolute blast.
Well, I had a blast for many reasons. One, because I hadn't acted in a while, and it gave me a new life. Plus the fact I met the best people. And by the time we were doing one, I think it was Ocean 11, George and his father went through Chad to get to Nambia, to wherever it is. They were killing people. They were getting food and stuff in on their own.
Yeah,
he
the
and his
Sudan,
father.
I believe, is where it was too. Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
and Don Cheadle, what he did in the Rwanda, and Pitt, and all of these guys, they are so socially conscious of the world.
And you must have, again, loved it being in Las Vegas with these guys. It just looked like a lot of fun sitting from... I didn't want those movies to end,
No, I
essentially,
didn't
Carl.
either. I didn't either.
You know.
But great memories.
But at any rate, thank you again for having me in here.
Okay.
I mean,
Any other questions you have of him?
Anybody?
Do any of you want a raise?
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern. On Audience.